Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for coming and attending the Housing Partnership meeting of June 2nd, 2025. This meeting is now being held remotely over Zoom from now on. You can enter the meeting by looking at the meeting ID on the agenda and putting in the passcode. The City of Northampton does not discriminate based on disability and is committed to hosting accessible meetings. To request a reasonable accommodation to attend any city meeting, please contact the ADA coordinator at adacoordinator@northamptonma.gov or call 413-587-1288. And so I'd like to give a notice that this meeting is being recorded. And I'm going to take a roll call. Let's see, Richard Abuza,
Here.
Anna Schaefer,
Here.
Gordon Shaw,
Present.
Ben Wood,
Present.
Brenda Bod, present. Did I get everybody? Okay. And so I guess we can just give a minute in case there are any public comments or anyone wants to come in this moment and make a public comment. So just give it a few minutes, couple minutes, 1 minute. Okay. Next on the agenda is we need to approve the minutes from April 7th, 2025. April 7th. So I'm wondering if anybody wants to make a motion on that. If
I'll
everybody,
move for approval of the minutes from April 7th.
Second.
thank you. Okay, and we will do a roll call on that. Richard Abuza,
Yes.
Anna Schaefer,
Yes.
Gordon Shaw,
Yes.
Ben Wood.
So I was at the last meeting. So
You
do
can
I
abstain.
abstain?
You can abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, and Gwenda Bod, yes. Okay, and then the May meeting, we did not make quorum, so there is no business that was attended to for the May meeting, so we do not have minutes for that. On the other hand, if anybody wants to watch it, they can watch it on YouTube.
Gwen, I'm so sorry. There's like a hornet right in my room buzzing
Oh,
around me. Is it
Okay.
gonna break quorum if I go off mic and off camera for a minute or so while I try to deal with it?
No, not at all. Not
Thank
at
you.
all.
I'll be right back.
Okay. So on that note, I'm going to jump over the broker fee city council update and just open up for a discussion on ideas or thoughts that people have in terms of the goals for the housing partnership. And we had started working on this like, a little while ago. And if people may or may not remember that the mayor came and we talked about, our roles. And then Bev sent me recently a really interesting publication, which I just forwarded to you guys. It's a guidebook for local housing partnerships. And this is put out by the Massachusetts Housing Partnership in Boston. So I have had a chance to glance through it, but I haven't really had an opportunity to delve into it. And I wouldn't expect that any of you guys have had an opportunity to look through this unless you got this as well. But there's a lot to talk about, so we could talk about a lot of it, but I kind of feel like I would also like to be more prepared, in terms of like people coming with questions and things like that. So, does anybody have any thoughts on this or on goals or anything?
Just a quick point of clarification. Did you say you sent out this document from the Mass Housing Partnership?
Yes, Ben, actually, I
I
might
don't
have,
think I got it.
okay, I may not have your email. Hold on 1 minute. Keith, can you forward that to Ben?
I don't remember seeing it either, but that could be me.
I just sent it a
When,
few minutes.
oh,
I just a few minutes ago. I'm sorry
oh, for the first time.
for the first
Oh,
time.
okay, because I'm not in my
Yeah.
email. Okay, I'll look for it there.
Okay.
I may have seen it before. This is a document about, that's a guide for housing partnerships that was created by the
Uh-huh.
state component. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it talks about subsidized housing inventory, soft second mortgage loans, developing housing plans. Developing housing plans, could be a big one. Action plans. That's what that is, Gordon. You're right.
Yep, yep, yep. I'm looking at it and I found it. I jump into it.
Um, can someone forward that to Ben? Just because
Got
uh,
it?
I'm sorry to say that I don't have Ben's.
Keith sent it to me. I got it.
Okay. Um, I mean, I can share on my screen if you guys want me to do that also. Um,
I think that's okay because I think it really, what I think of it is more like a recipe book of things that partnerships can do, sort of lays out the scope of what things to do, but
exactly.
each community is really about setting their own agendas. And I think you started out by saying, um, we've been having this conversation for a while, but what do we want to do here at the partnership? I think is really putting it in basic lay terms.
Mhm.
We can talk about in terms of goals and objectives, but it's really what are we up to? Um, and I'm just reflecting on a very, pulling the lens back. We're at a very critical time.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a lot of things, but housing is certainly within the crosshairs. I mean, I'm getting emails through my work associations of things, the budget that's being debated now in Washington is looking to cut almost 40% of funding for Section 8 program. I mean, the Boston Housing Authority, for example, is sending out emails to their landlords saying there may be cutbacks, and so I don't have a sense of what New Hampton's prepared to do if that goes through. But we're really at a critical point for a lot of things, but housing supports things that keep people housed is really at jeopardy here. And I don't know if there's a role for us as tiny, tiny little Northampton for us to make an impact or statement, but it would be nice to think about ways in which we can contribute to helping preserve that safety net and or finding ways to, I don't know, substitute for things that might be gone in a little bit of time.
Mhm. Mhm. Thanks for your input, Gordon. I mean, it seems to me at this point, anything we can do to take action, or get on board with. So as an example, I went to the network meeting for the Western Mass Coalition Against Homelessness. It was a network meeting, people came from all over Massachusetts, including the Boston area. Um, for one, it's good to get together and talk about things that have gone well, and the challenges that we face, and then what's going on in the national level, what's going on in the state level, you know, things like that. So, for me, I'm paying attention, for example, to what's going on with the low income housing tenant LIHTC. Um, and a lot of the stuff that they're doing on a national level, as an individual, but I don't know what we can do in our city. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, one of the things that's been a core part of our missions I think might tie into that, and that's public education. It's one thing for people to sort of hear, drastic this, drastic that, in the news cycle, but if we take the trouble to explain the actual on the ground impact, to real people and in our community, that lets people know that what the consequences actually are. Maybe in this part of Massachusetts, that part of public education doesn't matter as much as it might somewhere else, but I think there are still minds that need to be educated.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea. What we're hearing about the Section 8 it has me kind of frantic. Like, within the city of Northampton, we do not have any federal housing tenants who have local tenant organizations. So, like for me, I'm always, because I have been a tenant, I have had that lived experience. I'm always trying to encourage people to organize and come together and, show as a united front to, you know, go to legislative days, maybe even work together to get into the state house, which is state. It's not national, but at the same time, when these organizations are formed, I think it has more of a pull. It's not just one lone little person working alone. And so I think education around that is really important. Just that's for me, that's what I think about. It might be something different in terms of education, what other people are thinking.
Education is great, but it's not a substitute for action. And if we're facing cuts, I just don't have a sense of how it's going to directly impact. I mean, it should be, maybe it's a valley discussion because, I mean, the
Right,
problems that we have are not just limited to Northampton. I mean, maybe you even
exactly.
saw at the Coalition for Homeless, Springfield's homelessness population has it's exploded. People,
Right,
and along with what's happening on the federal side, our state shelter system is facing cutbacks. It's a wait list. Used to be that you could get right into shelter if you got evicted. You had a qualifying eviction, I should say, because not every
right.
eviction gets you in. But now it's like they can't. The people who just can't pay their rent and there's no place to go. I don't know where we're going to end up, but um, just wondering what's going on in Northampton, even with homelessness. Has the resiliency hub, the place that they created, that's opened, right? Is it curious about
Uh,
what they've been up to?
It is,
Yeah,
it's not open.
Not open yet?
They're starting on the rehab, hopefully at the end of the year.
Okay.
okay. That will be an important resource, especially to have at this time. Um,
So,
yeah,
well, yeah. So one of the I work in public health. It's my core field, and there's a tremendous overlap between public health and housing. Um, in the public health space right now, there's a lot of work happening to try to understand what the potential impacts are going to be for Medicaid cuts, which are part of the proposed federal bill. And there's a lot of work being done to really hone messaging and talking points and ways of expressing stories and things that actually resonate with people. So one of the things that I've been thinking about in this space actually relates to an opportunity that my organization just went for with the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, the regional planning agency that covers Lowell, the greater Lowell region.
yeah.
They just put out, and they've been working on this initiative called Home is Everything
Okay.
for a couple of years now. And the proposal that they just put out and that they're finding a vendor for is all about storytelling. And I think that the like this bridge between education and action is like, how do you actually get people motivated to take action?
Yeah, it's
Right.
a
And
challenge.
so this whole effort that they're funding is really designed to figure out different ways of getting people's stories about what it's like to try to live, try to buy a home, try to rent an apartment, try to stay in that particular region of the state, and figure out new and different ways of talking about it, because the ways in which we've talked about it just haven't resonated enough in the past. Both
Right.
from the standpoint, I think what Richard was talking about, like there's still like there's a lot of people in Northampton um, who are fighting against denser development, who are fighting against affordable housing, and like there has to be a way to shift that narrative a little bit that can help with the fight that's really in front of us right now. Um, so there's like ways to do that, to try to like launch those types of campaigns and things. It takes a lot of work, it takes resources, all those sorts of things that I don't know what we have available to us to push for, but that's one thing. I could share the request for proposals that the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments put out, because it actually frames their issue and like what they're trying to accomplish, I think, really well.
I would love to see that. Yeah,
I will send it to Keith and he can forward it around.
okay. Thanks.
Keith, did you want to say more about the builder?
Yeah, just to put it out there, I don't think it's past the kind of idea phase, and it's something we want to do just because it's been part of these conversations in planning board or different community events, and feedback we get from people. And it's only, I think, worse since 2022, 2023, whenever that first developer conference happened. So just to let you know that they were thinking about it, and it's not really past the idea phase at this point. But I think kind of like what you guys were just discussing now, is that the appropriate thing to do? Is that the appropriate task item? Why housing is so hard? Is it more kind of, hey, all these funding cuts are really going to challenge us, and we're already having a housing problem. What's going to happen when we have more homeless or people unhoused? And how's that's going to strain? And that's why something like the Community Resiliency Hub will be is going to be very important. There's been, you know, we bought the thing in 2023, and since then there's been a very vocal group saying this has been a bad purchase. We don't feel that way. We think it's going to be benefit a lot of people, and especially if there's going to be, federal cuts, and in housing just going to get more difficult. But on the flip side, we are seeing positive results. Valley CDC, they said the ribbon cutting for Laurel Street, that was 20 something years in the making. Prospect Place on Bridge Road, hopefully at the end of the year. They get murals up. It's moving at a clip. And they have Crafts Avenue behind City Hall. So things are happening, but it's just kind of slow going. And that's on the affordable side. On the market rate, there's a lot of things happening, but so I think it's probably deserves a further question of, is it the right, is this developer forum the right format right now? Or is it kind of this federal cuts and how those all tie in?
if I were to attend something like that, I would, and I'm I'm not a developer, but I'm also just wondering, a lot of the state has put a lot of money into new development, and I'm just wondering how that trickles down to communities like Northampton, and is there a role for the city to play in that, in supporting developers? And that might be a way to frame some sort of workshop or summit with developers in the city to think about the monies that are out there. I'm sure the people that know this stuff, like at Valley, who do the housing development, are probably already, trying to figure out where next is, where can we go next with getting money. But there is a lot of new money out there, and the biggest problem is there isn't enough housing to go around.
Mm.
And so, what can we do in Northampton to help fill the gap? Another thought I had is, in terms of action, is thinking about. I mean, so one is that we don't have enough housing, but the other problem is that um, rental housing is the rents are going up, and it's not. I'm not blaming landlords for wanting to raise rents, because everything's going up, and it's just a matter of economics and business. But I'm just thinking out loud here. I wonder if there's a way to incentivize uh, landlords that offer private housing. I'm not talking about the big developments, but like not subsidized. They charge market rent. A way to incentivize them from holding rents steady. Because when I think people most know that I'm in housing court every week, and I'm helping. Then I'm the biggest reason people get evicted is because they can't pay their rent. The second biggest reason is because the landlord is seeking a rent increase, and so they're terminating in their existing tenancy, and the tenant has not accepted the rent increase because they can't afford it. So there are people who are losing their housing just because of the market. They're just not able to afford the rents that they're already renting from. There are ways to delay it, but and it eventually has to come to an end. So I don't know. Northampton's also expensive place to rent.
Mhm. Yeah,
I don't know if it's through tax incentives or something that the city can do. Maybe it's CPA money. I don't know.
right. Um, like sometimes I've felt like, if we had like a little fallback fund for like private landlords, who have private homes, or if and this may exist, or it may be coming into existence through the housing bond bill, maybe. But like incentivizing people who are stuck in their big homes, maybe to divide the house up and make it a multifamily, or, I know building is kind of expensive right now, but I'm not sure if there's something for that.
Like the city matching the state's home loan modification program or something like that, with the
Mhm.
0% interest loan that allows people to access not just $50,000, but $100,000
Sure, something like that.
in loan dollars.
Yeah. Mhm.
This is a related point, and it's probably hopefully the right time to raise it, but I believe one of the times when tenants experience significant rent increases is when buildings are sold. Because you've got a lot of buildings with long-term ownership in Northampton. And especially, we're not talking about the developments, but more than 50% of Northampton's housing, I believe, rental housing, is in 2, 3, and 4 family units. And it's hard for the smaller landlords to do all the things they need to do to keep things going, and it becomes frustrating, and it's incentivized by the market for them to sell, and that exacerbates affordability because it's inevitable on two fronts. And it's inevitable when the the base costs for a new owner are there, the rents have to support it. And the other thing is that a lot of these landlords, some of whom are getting older, who held onto these properties, they have a tendency to sort of recognize that their costs are lower. They recognize that rents are really high. They're part of the neighborhood. They rent to their friend's kid or, somebody who went to high school with their, or whatever. And to the extent that we discourage by our demonization or regulatory approach or our non-support of these landlords, it accelerates the frustration. I am not that tapped into that community, but I am enough to know that people get frustrated, and it's not like many of the hoops that landlords have to jump through aren't important safety things, but the way in which they're administered and people are supported in complying with them can make a difference in how frustrating it feels for these owners. So I want us to keep in mind that part of our education component is to remind people that these small landlords are housing providers, and they are providing a lot of the little a affordability. And so I invite us to keep that in mind in our public education and in our planning.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I can just, I think I just want to keep this as an ongoing agenda item, because times are so quickly changing and adjusting. I,
Sure. But
yeah,
let's not, I mean, we have a specific idea here, which is Keith's putting out the city's interest in doing it, and maybe there's a role for the partnership to play in planning it, but maybe it's something that, it's not this point, we're June. These things take several months to get planned, but maybe we're talking about something in the fall and planning could begin. And maybe, Keith, the thing to do is to go back and get a better sense from the planning department what they would think the agenda might look like. I threw out an idea. Maybe that could be part of it. I don't know if there's room for that, but bringing back together, and it could be what could be the the crisis in light of what's happening. We'll know more by fall, in terms of what cuts are coming through, and so maybe it's a reaction to that as well. It's maybe also maybe it's a symposium of builders and providers.
mhm.
Maybe it's regional too.
It's definitely regional. I mean, it's certainly not only Northampton. It's, the highest amount of homelessness recently, the highest is Hampden County.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, it's like, what's going on there? And then, even the counts that they got in January for the homelessness population, a lot of what they're counting are the people that are in the shelters and not the people who didn't get into the shelters that night, not the people who just, aren't accounted for. Um, so that kind of sort of, has an impact on all the other numbers,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't know if Richard had your hand up, but did anyone see that Aris just published their, I don't know if it was their actual housing production plan, but it was from some sort of planning effort, and they discussed they need to build like 600 to 900 units by 2030 or something like that. It was a very, very lofty goal in the hundreds of units. And so that's some busy work to do,
What report is that, Keith?
I just saw it in the Gazette. I didn't get involved. I didn't read too much of it, but it was a planning effort, and they just kind of put a number to what the city needs to build, or the city of the town of Amherst needs to do.
Okay,
And that's overall units. That's not affordable units. There needs to be an increase in housing stock of that much.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a breakdown. I imagine there would be, but
let's see, Amherst Housing Plan calls for 700 to 900 new units by 2030.
Share that in the chat.
What is that?
Oh, sorry. Can you share that like in the sidebar chat?
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah. And Keith, you said something about the city wanting to do another house building workshop?
I mean that was a while back. Yeah, in the meeting, I said that a long time ago.
Okay,
That's what I was referring to when I said
Yeah,
the idea of maybe planning something for the fall.
okay,
It could be, for developers, it could be for developers, providers, it could be a sort of a symposium to think about brainstorming around the crisis and how to spur on more development. Maybe it's information for sources of funding that are at least coming through on the state side that we keep those going.
yeah. Okay,
But
Does
why don't we
any-
keep that on the agenda and think about coming back to that with maybe something.
Yeah.
Firm up what it might look like.
okay,
Yeah, like we need 700 to 900 new units.
Let's put it
In the
in
city
there,
of
like,
Northampton,
yeah,
let's just say,
it's in 6
Right.
more years, 5 more
yeah,
years.
right.
what's getting in the
But-
way?
I keep thinking, I mean, eventually, I guess, I don't know what's going on with Coca-Cola, but that's a lot of building right there that's already set up and connected to, it's not like new.
well, that is the industrial district, and it's set up for industrial. But
But does it mean that if somebody came in and said, you have this big empty building here, and we noticed that maybe condos might sell in Northampton, um, you know,
yeah,
I wouldn't want Northampton to be closed to the possibility of that because condo ownership would bring in taxes, and it is a large area. Um, so
So
it's
would
just,
another business
yeah,
with
that's
good paying
Yeah.
jobs, which is
Yeah.
part of the solution to
Right.
affordability.
Absolutely. That is true. True, true, true. All right. So we will keep that going on the agenda. And I will move on to our next agenda item if that's okay with everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, so does anybody want to give any updates on the broker fee city council, what happened there with city council?
I
For
had
any-
attended that meeting and had attended like the public comment portion. I
Right.
know a number of people commented, and I had meant to go back and watch the video of the meeting afterwards. I had ended up having to leave, so I actually don't know what the outcome was of the conversation. I don't know if anybody else knows.
I know in an April 23rd article in the Gazette, which I think I was also at that meeting and I may have commented, I probably did. But it looks as though, they have advanced it again, pushed it back and, support it. So I wasn't surprised.
Did people speak in opposition to it?
Not at that meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't really hear any opposition to that,
okay.
which is new. And then Housing Policy Action Center, CHAPA. Okay.
I'm just looking to see if JAPA has a specific policy agenda that they're asking people to get on board with.
Yes, CHAPA is having policies that they're focusing on, which I can't answer exactly right now because I don't remember exactly what it is because there's different organizations that have different agendas, and I can't specifically remember what CHAP is working on. Let me just look because I do get updates a lot.
Ben, to answer your question about the tracking, we're not doing anything active at the moment, but we might do something retroactively to kind of see how things moved along. I think it's easy to look at individual projects and say, did this go through because of something else? And I know, there are in conversation, Carolyn has said, oh yeah, this was allowed because of this. But off the top of my head, I don't know that each individual project, but there is a way to just someone who's kind of like Carolyn or Nathan, who kind of manages the planning board, will be better just off the top of their head, kind of roll those off. Yeah.
Okay, so this is 2025-26. Priority state legislation with CHAPA. So codification of the mass rental voucher program, which is HD 2020 and SD 1573. And then updating the alternative housing voucher program, AHVP statute, which is HD 1953 and SD 1708. And then access to council and evictions, HD 3912 and SD 1771. And then eliminating mandatory broker fees for tenants, SD 35. And establishing a match savings program, HT 3851 and SD 2106, which of course encourages homeownership. And then yes, in God's backyard, creating a local option real estate transfer free, increasing the deeds excise tax to support affordable housing and environmental adaptation, creating an interagency supporting housing finance and strategy board, establishing a housing production goal for Massachusetts. These are all listed, and I will put this into the chat so you guys can see it. And Keith, if you could add this link to the minutes.
Will do.
Thank you so much. Okay. Also recently, there was recently the Fair Housing Conference. I think that Wayfinders kind of supports, and I didn't attend it this year. This is the first year I haven't attended a Fair Housing Conference. Um,
I had a question about that Fair Housing Conference. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, do cities ever give like sort of mini grants to people to participate, because it's something that I've been interested in, and I didn't know if there's like a budget to support people going.
I think that's a great question.
I know a bit about that since my agency was part of the sponsors of it.
Okay.
It's been going on for decades now, and it comes out of the Mass Fair Housing Center. They're the lead agency, and Community Legal Aid and Wayfinders and other agencies also help support it. But largely the planning is through Mass Fair Housing, and they just put together they just do a lot of outreach around having people setting up different topics. Certainly those staff from those agencies design their workshops. I think they're interesting, and it's a conference, so it's like a 2-day thing where people show up.
Yeah.
You the plenary speaker, and then there's like options to go in and hear about what's going on in the world of fair housing, led by people who are doing the work.
Hannah, I think also you could apply for a scholarship. Is that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's every April.
Uh-huh.
Great. Yeah, I knew that I had missed it this year, but I definitely would love to go at some point.
Yeah. All right. So does anybody have anything to add in terms of business not otherwise anticipated? Yes, Keith.
Yeah, Gwen, so just let everyone know, Chris Palamas, he stepped down, and Melissa Fowler as well. She stopped being the planning board representative. I just heard from her today. So she stepped down. And so I did let the mayor's office know about that, because last month some people were traveling, and then others who couldn't make it,
Okay.
didn't have quorum. So
Yeah.
hopefully we
Okay.
can get those slots filled.
Great. And actually, I did run into the mayor at the recent conference that I went to and mentioned it to her. And she thinks there are a couple more people coming in and coming through. So that's good. We do need more people. So
What
we'll
it's
put it
worth,
out
I
there to
just
the public.
today got my notice that my term is up and I have to renew. So
Uh-oh. I hope you
I
get
put it in.
really
I had to
far
reapply. I don't remember
in.
doing this
I
I
got
in
the
the
same
past, but
notice today.
what?
I
You got
got
one
the
too?
same notice, and I have,
Yeah,
I believe the last 2 times I've had to reapply.
yeah.
Wow.
It isn't necessarily a speedy process, and apparently, I forget, it might be the end of this month or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, my term might be expiring in June, so maybe there's something that I have to do.
I think the mayor's office is just catching up on some of these. I don't even know what my term was when I re-upped last time. So it might
Okay.
just be a catch up. Because Richard, I don't think we're on the same sequence. We're not in sync in terms of our term. If you got one, I got one.
Okay.
Something else might be afoot.
All right. And
I had just a related question because I missed. Did you say Melissa stepped down from the planning board or from the housing partnership as well?
Both, yeah.
Both. Okay.
Planning board first, then.
Okay. And do we know about Spencer?
I did email him last week, 2 weeks ago. He attended in February,
Oh, okay.
and nothing since then. Just kind of reminding him. I think he had teaching or something, but hopefully that's done now. But I haven't heard back. So
Thanks.
okay. That leaves us with one final motion.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll
There's a
second for the
All
record.
right. Thank you so much. And we do not need a roll call on that.
Okay. See everybody around. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a
folks.
good night. Bye-bye.